We bring in Mike North, the NFL Senior Director of Broadcast Planning and Scheduling. That's a fancy title. Mike is known for being in that little small room, private room, the secured room at the NFL home office, and they come up with the schedule here. When do you start thinking of, like, when will you start 2018 schedule?
Already started.
You did?
Absolutely. Already started. We don't know the matchups, obviously, but we know our network partner reactions to this year's schedule. We know our team reactions to this year's schedule. And we know how the last 10, 12 weeks have gone in that room. We're developing a new dynamic in that room. We replaced half the scheduling team. Perloff's buddy, Ani Bose, moved on to events. Jonathan Payne moved on, moved with his young family to Nashville. So we added 2 new people to that room, Blake Jones from our football ops department and Charlotte Carey from the broadcasting department. So the 4 of us are still trying to figure each other out. The software and the hardware, as much as people like to make fun of it, actually does a phenomenal job for us. But
is the computer in Europe?
There's hundreds and hundreds of computers, and they are all out there in the cloud somewhere. So the only way I know where they are is when they find a schedule and they write it in the database, it comes with a timestamp. And if that timestamp is 4 hours, 5 hours ahead of us, I know it's that way. If it's behind us, I know it's that way. But they're somewhere out on the information superhighway. We'll take as many as we can put our hands on.
What's the reaction been? Have you had negative reaction from teams?
I'd like to say nothing that we didn't expect. I mean, we've done this enough that we know when that schedule comes out. We know when we look at it, he's not going to love that. No club's going to love their schedule every year. But, you know, somebody with a 3-game road trip and maybe a road Monday in the middle of it, like New England and Denver have this year, we knew that was going to be a tough pill to swallow. You know, nobody wants to open a season with 2 consecutive road games. You know, Philadelphia and Arizona faced that this year. I think for the most part, the reaction has been what we expected.
The home opener, what was the reaction? I know Kansas City ends up going to New England. Who were the other candidates?
Frankly, all of them. I mean, at some point in the conversation.
But not Atlanta.
Initially, Atlanta. The day after the Super Bowl, our first thought was, holy cow, what a Super Bowl. Let's come right back with it. Game 1 next year. As we got into it further and started thinking about other priorities, including the Falcons' home opener, opening the new building, not because construction was going to be delayed that we needed to do it in week 2, but because week 1 is its own story. And if we really wanted to focus the story in week 2 on the Mercedes-Benz building, you know, week 2 made more sense to us. And like you said, once the Falcons are on NBC in week 2, they're not going to be on NBC again in week 1. So now you look at other options. Kansas City, a division winner, had to be on the road anyway in week 1 due to their Royals constraints, so it fit well for us.
When it comes to requests, do teams have requests?
Absolutely.
How do I request, you know, something in the schedule?
We solicit your input. You or a team. You don't get a vote, but the teams all get a vote.
Okay.
We send them out a form the day the regular season ends, and we say, now we know your 256 matchups, so we know your 8 home and 8 road. What do you need us to know? What's going on in your building? What's going on in your market? What are things you need us to keep in mind in terms of travel? You know, what happened to you last year? What happened to you 2 years ago? So every club fills out a form and sends it in, and every one of the 5 network partners fills out a form and sends it in. And there's some back and forth throughout the process, but for the most part, that's your one shot to get in Howard Katz's ear. That's your one shot to get your request in front of Roger Goodell. And then that piece of paper goes in the notebook, and we really don't talk to you again until release day.
What about the teams playing in London and the option of having a bye week? Can you request to not have a bye week?
Yeah.
Can you request to have a game on the East Coast before you go to London?
You can certainly request it. Those are a little trickier to promise. I'm not sure if every single club going to London says to us, I got to be in New York or New England the week before, that we'd be able to accommodate it. But when the Raiders went a few years ago, we were able to get them east on their way. The Rams asked us specifically this year. That being said, the Cardinals didn't. The Cardinals said, you know what, we're perfectly fine with a home game the week before London. We'll figure it out from here, try to treat it like a normal week and leave for a road game later in the week. So everybody gets to weigh in, and it happened last year for the first time. It was the Colts had the week 4 London game against Jacksonville, opted not to take the bye in week 5, took a home game instead, won that home game. And I assume more than one of our London teams this year gave a call over to the Colts and asked them, how was it? How'd you feel? How'd you recover? Obviously, the win helped. And this year, of the 4 teams playing London games in weeks 3 and 4, 3 of them are going to take another game when they come back instead of the bye.
We're talking to Mike North, the NFL Senior Director of Broadcast Planning and Scheduling. All right, take us into the NFL home office. Now, I mentioned you got to have security clearance. There's like probably a pass card, swipe card to get in there. How many people have a swipe card to get into the room where you come up with the schedule?
4.
Does the commissioner have a swipe card?
The commissioner gets to knock, and he gets let in anytime he wants to enter, but I don't believe his key card actually activates the door.
Does he have a special knock?
You know what? Not that many people knock, quite honestly, at this point in the season. They know we're in there. They know we're locked down. Very few people come knocking on that door. When somebody does, it's probably somebody on the level of the commissioner. He gets let right in.
But is it or is it a...
No, it's certainly not a pounding knock. I'd say it's more just like just something like that. Let us know it's him. Let us know he knows that he's, yes.
Can he overrule you?
100%.
Has he?
Over the 20 years I've been doing this, sure. Look, the truth is, by the time the process ends, you know, we've looked through hundreds of thousands of schedules. The one we're handing up there on schedule recommendation day, if you will, that's not going to be a surprise to the commissioner. Howard Katz and Roger Goodell speak throughout the process, probably starting the day after the Super Bowl. And, hey, what do you think of this team on Sunday Night Football? We may send these guys to London, and they've asked to go east the week before. We've got a stadium block here that we're going to try to accommodate. I know the owner made a special mention to you, Commish. Howard and Roger talk throughout the process so that on release day and recommendation day, hopefully nothing surprises the commissioner.
How do you decide who gets prime time, ready to take that next step that you know, based on last year, wasn't a fluke, that they're for real? The Raiders look like they got a little bit more primetime love.
Sure hope they're for real.
Yeah.
Look, it's a balancing act like everything else we do. You always know that the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Steelers, the Packers, you know, our national brands, even if they're not 10-6 or 12-4, they're probably heading for some national television. The guys on the other end who have, you know, quote unquote, played their way onto primetime, those are the ones that we work with our network partners and we talk about, look, these guys have earned it. You know, you look at a team like Tampa Bay, for instance, you know, 9-7 with a face and a franchise quarterback, and we think they're good. What do we know? You know, one bad injury, a couple of bad breaks, and you never know. We thought, you know, last year Carolina was here to stay. We thought Arizona was going to be excellent again. We took a bet on the Jets last year. You know, there were 3 double-digit win teams from 2015 that we relied on pretty heavily in the 2016 schedule. Didn't work out for us. This year, yeah, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Buccaneers, you know, teams that have earned that additional exposure are getting their way onto the primetime schedule while also still leaving room for the traditional ratings draws that we're all used to.
How would Tony Romo have affected this year's schedule?
It would have been interesting. Depends on where he would have gone, obviously. We were looking at, like everybody else, was it going to be Houston? Was it going to be Denver? You know, neither of those teams were, you know, lacking for national television anyway. So I don't think it would have been a sea change, but, you know, the Houston at New England game, like I mentioned in one of these other interviews at some point, all of a sudden that becomes a bigger game than maybe we're looking at it right now, maybe CBS looking at it right now. Maybe one of our primetime partners calls us that afternoon and says, hey, if there's any way, that's one we'd love to put our hand on. And truth be told, it would have at least been in the conversation, I think, for kickoff.
McLovin, you had a question for Mike?
Many,
It's
I'm sure.
it's for the, well, first of all, okay, so you do the schedule. Now, describe the other 11 months. They made me ask that. They made me ask that. Mike, come on.
No problem. Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, I'm mad because he beat my school in soccer, and, you know, I don't know if you read the Philadelphia Daily News story on Mike North leading Pencrest past Lower Merion.
That was many, many years ago. But the schedule process itself is 3 months, you know, half of January and all of February, March, and most of April. We'll catch our breath here a little bit. You know, we've got the draft this week in Philly. Truth be told, for the broadcasting department, May and June, pretty quiet. You've probably read and heard about some of the new things we're looking at in terms of game flow and commercial formats and commercial inventory. So there's a lot of work still to be done for next season, getting ready for when are we going to take commercial breaks and why and how long are they going to last, stuff like that. But, you know, July, teams go to camp, and we're right back to work. We're meeting with all our network partners, talking about rules changes, policies. Preseason starts in August. Once August hits, that's mid-season for us. We're all out of games every weekend.
Do you go every week to a game?
Yeah, me or somebody like me from the broadcasting department goes to all the nationally televised games as a resource to the broadcaster. You know, if something goes wrong, if there's a question, when was the last time a running back ran for 11 touchdowns in a quarter, or why did the official rule what he ruled, or hey, can we interview this guy, or hey, we meant to go to commercial but we didn't. Can we go to commercial next time instead? There's a group of about 8 or 9 of us that travel, and we try to hit 5 or 6 games every weekend. But the day the regular season ends, we're locked back in that room and thinking about next year's schedule.
Have you thought about rolling spots, you know, like sort of NASCAR does, that you stay with the action and that they have a commercial? Because I know the commissioner's talking about let's try to reduce the commercial flow, but you know, you still want that money that's coming from all those commercials. So is there a possibility that that could happen?
Absolutely. We tried it a little bit last year. There were 1 or 2 examples where our network partners, and to their credit, they're all in on this. This isn't something that the league office is shoving down their throats. They want what we want. They want a real good presentation on television. They want to keep ratings where they are, or preferably up. And so we all have to think about the right way to do that. It starts with the schedule, of course. You know, we've got to put good games in good television windows so that at least initial tune-in is there. Yeah. And then once the game starts, can we improve on flow? Can we limit, you know, the double ups like the commissioner mentioned, touchdown, commercial break, kickoff, commercial break? Nobody likes that, but it's a necessary evil at times. If we reduce the number of breaks, hopefully we have to do something like that less often.
Dean Blandino deciding to go into TV, how big? That to me, it's a big story, because he was going to be the face, focal point of all the reviews, instant replay. How big a loss was that?
Personally, selfishly, I think it's a big loss. I think he was great for the league. I think he was great as he you know, took advantage of the new world we live in now, whether it was tweeting out right away or going on NFL Network that night. He was very approachable, very reachable, very honest, very believable. Obviously, any call that a referee makes, half the fans are going to hate and half are going to like. But I can't believe, and I'm not close enough to it to know, but I can't believe that those in charge of the football operations side of the house, Troy Vincent, you know, all the way up to the commissioner, I can't imagine Dean dropped this bombshell on them out of the blue. I'm sure this is something they've been talking about for a while, and I assume they have a plan in place to pick up right where Dean left off.
I was just surprised they didn't have him under contract, knowing he was going to be that important to this, you know, central intelligence here with NFL replay.
Yeah, hopefully what he's put in place and the methodology and the technology and the way he did what he did is something that, whether it's Al Riveron or somebody else from our office or somebody that we don't even know yet, can come in and really just kind of pick up where he left off.
McLovin's available if you'd like him.
Hey, the job's posted on NFL.com. Throw in a resume. Yeah.
McLovin?
I don't know. There's a lot of pressure on that.
It's a lot of pressure on that job,
I don't
right?
think you could take that pressure.
No.
Yeah, a guy like me comes in here and has to talk about the schedule for a day or two after it's out. But once the draft hits and we all turn the page, I can go back in my hole. Nobody knows my name. That head of officiating, that guy all day, every day, anytime there's an NFL game going on, that guy is under fire. That's a lot.
He's Mike North, the NFL Senior Director of Broadcast Planning and Scheduling. He does a whole lot more than just the scheduling, McLovin. He does work more than a month.
I know that. I was just bringing up a point.
All right.
Oh, my God.
It's fair. You're not the first guy to make that point that once we're done, we're done. But the truth is we're already thinking about next year. Literally meetings all next week with potential vendors, new partners. How do we get more out of the software? How do we get more out of the hardware? And really, like I said, how do the humans figure out how to take advantage of all of this processing power? You know, if you had 500 computers available to you, what would you do with them? Would you put them all on Kansas City, New England for kickoff? Or would you put a couple on Jets, New England, or Carolina, New England? You know, how do you spread out all of your resources to try to find the magical, mythical best schedule, knowing full well that it probably doesn't exist?
What, Paulie?
Dan, to be fair to Mike, McLovin doesn't work 12 months a year.
So basically, you just go to the beach for 9 months. That's what I was
Okay,
hearing.
can we stop?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, all right.
No.
Look, he went out of his way. He's driving out of Philly for the draft, and you guys are beating up on him.
I see Mike and Ani and all those guys. They're all in the bowels of the stadium running around like crazy every Sunday.
Don't do a make good here, McLovin. Don't do a make good here. He sees right through this. You were torching him, saying...
Whatever. Paulie comes up to me and says, you got to ask him what he does the other 11 months. I'm like, I'm not going to ask him that.
That does not sound like me. That doesn't sound like
You're not that snarky.
No.
Yes, Seton.
That's when you just go, you laugh at Paul and then ignore it.
Yeah.
That's what.
Are you guys done with beating up Mike North? He did us a favor. He came in. His car's still running out front. What, Fritzy?
Why do the Broncos have 3 home games in a bye week like the first 5 weeks of the year? You're killing me with
He's
that.
Mike North, the NFL Senior Director of Broadcast Planning and Scheduling, heading to Philadelphia for the draft. Mike, let's do this again next year.
Oh, I can't wait.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.